Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the radio production class here at Com 212. My name is Michael Bell. I am the host here for our little meeting for International Jazz Day, where we have lots of presentations and a special interview with Chairperson Dion Parson. So now I will turn it over to our presentations, where we will begin with Saquana Smith.
On November 2011, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization officially designated April 30th as International Jazz Day in order to highlight jazz and its diplomatic role of uniting people in all corners of the globe. International Jazz Day is chaired and led by UNESCO Director General R.G. Azoulay and legendary pianist and composer Herbie Hancock, who serves as UNESCO Ambassador for the International Dialogue and Chairman of the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. The Institute is the non-profit charged with planning, promoting, and producing this annual celebration. When a human being is oppressed, the natural tendency is to feel anger. Jazz is a response to oppression that is not bullets and blood. Jazz is the expression and harmony and at the same time of hope and freedom. Herbie Hancock. International Jazz Day brings together communities, schools, artists, historians, academics, and jazz enthusiasts all over the world to celebrate and learn about jazz and its roots, future, and impact. Raise awareness of the need for intercultural dialogue and mutual understanding, and reinforce international cooperation and communication. Each year on April 30th, this international art form is recognized for promoting peace, dialogue among cultures, diversity, and respect for human rights and human dignity, eradicating discrimination, promoting freedom of expression, fostering gender equality, and reinforcing the role of youth in acting social change. Due to concerns about the spread of the novel coronavirus, the International Jazz Day 2020 Global Host celebration in Cape Town and other cities across South Africa, including the All-Star Global Concert on April 30th, did not take place as scheduled. In its place, UNESCO and the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz presented a fully virtual celebration of International Jazz Day, with free online education programs and star-studded virtual global concert dedicated to frontline medical workers and first responders. In parallel, organizers and jazz lovers from around the world recorded hundreds of performances, greetings, and other special Jazz Day tributes as a collective expression of solidarity. The Institute and UNESCO will continue their partnership to encourage schools, universities, libraries, art organizations, community centers, and other entities in UNESCO's 195 member states to host jazz concert and educational programs on International Jazz Day. The goal is to reach people of all ages and backgrounds in order to include them in this global celebration of freedom, creativity, and above all, jazz.
Thank you.
Following our program here for International Jazz Day, I will now turn it over to Keana.
Around the world, around the globe, jazz is keeping hope alive each year on April 30th, breaking barriers in communities and promoting peace and creating opportunities for young people in forms of expression, improvisation, and innovation. Schools, artists, and historians come together and create a culturally diverse environment and reconnect in the midst of isolation. Jazz is a unique blend of many styles of music such as jazz, African blues, and Spanish music. Jazz grew from African American slaves and preserved native musical traditions. Happy International Jazz Day!
Thank you so much, Kiana. And now I will share with you my presentation for International Jazz Day. American style of music that developed in the early decades of the 20th century. Its roots include many Afro-American folk music traditions, such as spirituals, work songs, and the blues. It also borrowed from 19th century band music and ragtime styles of piano playing. The distinctive elements of jazz include characteristics of rhythm patterns, harmonics, practices related to but not identical with functional harmony, and the practices of improvisation. Jazz has influenced and has been influenced by traditional classical music and popular music. The boundaries are not always especially clear. Although jazz has relatively short history, it has also developed several distinct styles which the non-specialists should be at least superficially familiar with. The earliest styles widely recognized as distinctively in tradition were Dixieland. The style Dixieland became the center of its development in New Orleans. Dixieland jazz is typically performed by a small ensemble consisting of clarinet, trumpet, and trombone, accompanied by a rhythm section of a drum set, banjo or piano, and string bass or tuba. The next distinctive style was swing. Swing music was performed by a large ensemble consisting of saxophones, sometimes also clarinets, trumpets, and trombones. From 3 to 5 players and could be incorporated. Bebop or bop marked the return to small ensemble jazz. This style is characterized by complex harmonies, often rapid tempos, and intense, frequently dysfunct melodic lines. Ensembles could consist of 1 to 3 melody instruments, typically the saxophone, trumpet, or trombone, with rhythm section up to piano, bass, and drums. The contemporary jazz scene is a complex. All three styles previously mentioned continue to be cultivated. In addition, new stylistic developments have enriched the tradition. One style is cool jazz, characterized by technical sophistications and expressive restraint, a radical extension of bop called freeform jazz, in which small ensembles, typically one melody instrument, bass, and drums, improvise freely without the support of previously determined melody, harmony, or metrical pattern. Another style is fusion jazz, which incorporates many harmonic rhythmic practices of rock music and exploits the possibility of electronic instruments in combination with the traditional ones. Some significant jazz musicians were Louis Armstrong, who was born in 1900s and died in 1971, and was a dominant artist in the Dixieland era who went on to become an international figure in popular culture. Duke Ellington, 1899 to 1974, is perhaps the greatest genius of the traditional jazz to emerge so far. His compositions for his big swing band, including some extended forms, and the veracity and imagination of their performances. And Charles Parker, who was the leader of the bop movement of the time in 1920 to 1955. This has been some jazz information. I hope you guys learned a lot from these presentations. I think Shari is still having some technical difficulties. So with that in mind and trying to keep up with our time, I now want to welcome a special guest here at WUVI and in our program. So, of course, he is the chairperson for music and the Department of Communications and Liberal Arts. None other than Dion Parson. So, if you can all give a round of applause for Chairperson Dion Parson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for that warm invitation. And I must commend you, Mr. Bell. Your presentation on jazz spans up from the early beginnings in the early 1900s. I think you took my jazz history course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for all your presentations. Wonderful job. And it's such a pleasure to be here discussing and celebrating International Jazz Day, one of my favorite topics. So thank you for having me.
Chairperson Dion Parson, it would be much to our pleasure if you could talk about yourself a little bit to the listening audience that isn't too familiar about who you are.
Okay, where would you like me to start?
Maybe tell us about your time here in the Virgin Islands, that from growing there that led to you forming the 21st Century Band.
Okay, well, I'm born and raised in the Virgin Islands. I went to Dover Elementary School, went Aspinall Junior High School, Charlotte Marley High School. I graduated from CHS in '85. Prior to graduating, I must say I grew up playing trombone. I was a trombone player. Dr. Trotman was my first music teacher in Dover Elementary School, and I transitioned to drums in high school. However, I never had a drum instructor. So I got into college. I went to Rutgers University, 2 degrees, my bachelor's in music education and my master's in jazz performance. And when I got into Rutgers University, I got into the school, but not into the music program because I didn't have the proficiency on the instrument. So it took me a year to kind of reapply, and I eventually got into the program. Fast forward, I graduated with honors. And 2 weeks before my graduation from Rutgers and undergraduate school, I got invited to go to New York City, right across the bridge from New Jersey, and audition for a gentleman by the name of Ray Anderson, one of the lead trombone players in the world. I think he's a genius on the instrument. I got the gig with Ray and went on the road. And so I started grad school for 1 year and then quit school and went on the road with Ray for 4 years and then started a career doing that. And in that process, my good friend Ron Blake moved to New York in the early 90s and we became roommates. And, we always would talk about our time growing up in the Virgin Islands and get arriving in New York and being, young lions on the scene and making a name and a reputation for ourselves, but we always wanted to give back. How do we give back to the Virgin Islands? So we started coming home and doing summer band programs, and we met Ruben Rogers and then eventually Rashawn Ross and other gentlemen like Victor Provost. But during that time with Ron and I being in New York, we would always talk about our Caribbean culture and our heritage. How do we combine, our Caribbean culture and our professional careers as jazz musicians? And that was the tricky thing. And that was the beginning of us putting the 21st Century Band together. It really became a platform for us to promote and celebrate our Caribbean culture on a grand scale in combination with jazz improvisation. It was something that never really been done before. Dizzy Gillespie and Chano Posley in the 1940s created, Afro Latin jazz out of Cuba, with Manteca and those type of songs. And you mentioned Duke Ellington and Juan Tizol wrote Caravan, and that was a big hit. So those type of songs always were prominent in the jazz world, but they were not created by Caribbean folks. They were always created by someone with, influence or some type of connections to the Caribbean. So our goal was to create a platform where musicians coming specifically from the Virgin Islands can be able to showcase our cultural heritage, Quail Bay music, calypso, soca, reggae, mento, those type of music, and be able to present it in a jazz format, with the educational background that we had. So that's the basis of the formation of 21st Century Band and our concept behind it. The reason we called it a 21st Century Band was we were coming into the 21st century, but we was looking at our paying homage to our traditional bearers in the 21st century with modern harmonies and improvisation and jazz formats, which was something that was never done. So it wasn't about technology, which we do include technology, but it was more about the presentation of our musical style in a modern presentation.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Parson. And we wanted to bring you here because, again, today is International Jazz Day, and someone like you speaks to jazz because they live it, read it, write it every day. So we figured, why not bring you onto the show and do a little interview with you? So first off, for our questions, I want to welcome Saquana Smith, who's in our class, that has a question for you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Parson. My first question for you is, why is it important for you to mentor and provide music education to students?
Oh wow, that's a question that hits home. I think mentoring is very, very important. Um, it's like nurturing, it's like raising a child. It's something that we all are tasked to do. We do it in different ways. We do, you have a little brother and sister, you want to mentor them and show them the right way. You say, hey, that's not the right way to do it. That's all part of mentoring and nurturing. For me, like I mentioned in my introduction, when I left here and went to college, I was not, I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was. I was on St. Thomas playing gigs, making money. I thought I was doing good, but I wasn't prepared. I went to college and I didn't even get into the music program. I went on audition. I had no audition material, no solo pieces, no, I didn't have my scales together. None of the stuff that was required for incoming freshmen to pass an audition. I didn't have those skill sets because I didn't have a teacher. I never had a drum teacher. So I had talent, but nobody helped to nurture that. So right then and there, as I was being rejected from, being able to pursue my education, I made a decision that once I got through this, nobody else that I knew coming from the Virgin Islands pursuing music would have that issue. So I made it a point to come home Christmas break, summertime. I would go into the schools. I would invite, I would call the teachers, contact them and say, hey, I'm on island. Can I come and talk to your students? I would bring the literature for the students. I would even bring instruments. I've donated a lot of instruments to the schools, but I made it a point that I would not, if I could help it, have another Virgin Islander go through that process of being rejected like I did. Luckily for me, I could take it. What I ended up doing was I moved into my practice room. I got a thick blanket, a pillow. I came home, after my first semester. I bought a 6-pack of Crujan rum. I went back. I gave it to the security guards. I was like, hey man, this is for you guys. Just leave me alone. I'm gonna be in that room for a while. And they left me alone. And everybody they figured out, it was like, this guy is serious. He's trying to figure his stuff out, and the next year I got into the program. I got into the jazz ensemble. I got an academic scholarship. And I kind of proved to everyone that I wasn't going away. I was here to stay. So we had to figure it out. So that's why it's important to me, because I knew how ill prepared I was when I left here. And I vowed that if I could help it, no other Virgin Island that wanted, and no other Virgin Islander that wanted to walk in my footstep would experience that.
Thank you, Mr. Parson. I'll be
You-
passing it back to Mike Bell.
Thank you so much, Saquana. And now I want to introduce you, Chairperson person, Amos Francis, who has a special question for you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. How was transitioning from trombone to percussion, comparing the skills of trombone to percussion?
It was an easy transition because I always consider myself a percussionist first. I played on everything from the pots to the buckets to the furniture. I actually wrecked my dresser drawer. I played on it so much that my mother had to go out and buy a new dresser drawer. And that's how Dr. Trapman realized that I was really serious about playing drums, and he helped me to make that transition. So it wasn't really a transition that I had to get used to. And mentally, I was always a drummer. I played on everything. I played trombone because my mother actually told Dr. Trotman that she didn't want me to play drums in the house, so I I ended up on trombone. But I must say, it was one of the best things that I did because I learned melodic, you know, embellishments. I learned melodies. I learned scales. I learned music, in a traditional way. European Western harmonies. I learned concert band, John Philip Sousa, all of those things. So when I actually switched over to being a drummer, I mentally and musically, I had so much knowledge already. I was able to just transition that onto the drums and study mallet percussions and timpanis and multiple percussions and stuff like that. So it actually was a blessing for me to have that background, even though I kind of resisted it most of my life. I never really wanted to do it, but I did it because it was my only way to play music since I wasn't allowed to play drums. So I did it because I really just wanted to play music. But as I could, once I transitioned into playing drums and could do that for myself, I realized that I had so much knowledge already that it was easy for me to start composing, doing stuff like that. It was really easy for me because I had so much knowledge already.
All right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would then pass it back to my colleague, Mike Bell.
Thank you so much, Amos. Now, Chairperson, you will hear from Shari Lewis.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Parson. I have a question. You talked about mentoring being important to you. Do you have a mentor?
I have a couple of mentors. I have someone that mentors me in the music profession. I have a gentleman that I studied with for many many years. Um, 14 years. He has imparted so much information on me. I have a local traditional bearers here that I meet with on a regular basis and talk to them. I have a financial advisor that mentor me on finances and stuff. So um, that's something I hold dear to me. We always think we know all the answers and we know the right thing for us and all of that, but it's always good to have a sounding board to pass information off of, especially when other people are involved and will be affected by it. So I make sure that I surround myself with positive people that I trust that I can share information with to help guide me.
Thank you. I
You're
have
welcome.
another question. Now, with the pandemic, I know a lot of teachers, music teachers, would not have envisioned that they would be teaching through Zoom. So, what advice can you give to music professors to keep them, help them keep their students engaged?
That's a really tricky question because music is so intimate. Is one of those things that we would always want to be right there with our students and be able to play and feel the music and be involved in that presentation. I would tell them just stay supportive of your students, encourage them to practice and let them know that this isn't going to last forever. So what we don't want to do is fall behind. We want to maintain some level of proficiency along the way, whether it's practicing an hour every day. Even if you don't see where it's going, it's going to take you somewhere. So I would encourage them to develop some type of routine with the students, even for themselves. One of the things that I do with my students is I play with my students. I would make recordings for my students and send it to them. When before the pandemic, I would sit right next to my students and we would play through stuff together to show them that this is practice. This is doable. If I could do it, you can do it, because you want to always encourage your students to know that what you're asking of them is not impossible. They may not be able to do it today, but within time and effort that they put in, they'll be able to do it tomorrow. Not tomorrow being Thursday, tomorrow can be a month from now, but we're always looking at the proficiency of being the level. We're always looking at being proficient in the future. So I would encourage those teachers to just encourage their students to look towards tomorrow, because tomorrow will be better than today. I mean, even for me, when the pandemic hit, I may have been on maybe 3 or 4 Zoom calls before that, meetings through UVI and everything. We had to transition the whole department into Zoom and all of that. And then I had a number of tours that got canceled, and we were trying to figure out how do we do this and how do we do that. I mean, even before I came here for this interview today, I was in the studio recording the ending of one of my songs that I forgot to do a couple of weeks ago for International Jazz Day. So we did a whole project. 21st Century Band did a whole project. Ruben was in California, Ron was in New York, the percussion players in Brooklyn, Carlton was in Germany, I'm here, Melvin's in Atlanta, and we pulled it all together. And so it's doable. It's doable if you apply yourself and know that this is not going to last, and just try to operate in a sense of of proficiency to keep yourself moving forward. That's what I would tell them.
Thank you, Mr. Parson. That was some great advice and truly doable advice. I've been seeing that on Facebook where a lot of people are coming together via Zoom and still performing. So that's great advice. And thank you for answering my question. I will pass back over to Mr. Bell, who will call on the next person to ask their question to you.
Okay.
Okay, so your next person is me. Okay, so chairperson Parson, this question is really for you. I really would like to get your advice during this whole thing. There are music lovers and there are musicians such as myself. And many other people do it as a hobby. Others want it for a career. Others want it so bad they were willing to go the distance for it. What is the best advice that you can give to them, especially if they want to make it in the music business and especially if they want to make an impact?
My best advice for someone that wants to make it in the music business is to be serious. Be serious and be committed. When you think you have arrived, put more time into practicing, put more time into working at what you're working at, because there's that other person out there that's doing that's going the extra mile. And that's something that I learned in college, because I was that kid that everybody gave up on. And when they looked around a year later, I was standing tall and I'm like, okay, cool, bring it on. I'm ready to play. And everybody looked around. I was like, wow, when did this happen? So and all the teachers and all the mentors that I have, they would always tell me that, when you're tired of practicing, that's when you practice more. When you think, okay, I'm gonna just practice till 10 o'clock, and you get to 10 o'clock and you realize, okay, I made it to 10, let me go till 11 o'clock. And then you wake up in the middle of the night and you practice some more, or you rehearse something, or you study something. You have to be relentless. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I moved to New York City. I moved to New York City because I know it was going to be, it was like no mercy. I knew wherever I turned, somebody's going to be around the corner ready to kick my butt on the bandstand. And coming from here and really wanted to be a professional musician, that was the place to be. Everybody wanted to be in New York City because they knew if you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. That's like what the song said. Nowadays is a little bit different because New York has gotten so saturated and it's changed a lot. There's a lot of musicians in Atlanta. There's a lot of musicians in California, but there's also the type of musician that you want to be. That makes a difference. If you want to play jazz, New York is still the place to go. If you want to do Broadway, I did Broadway, I did Color Purple, I did that for 3 years. I played drums in that show. If you want to do Broadway, New York is the place to go. If you want to do television, Atlanta is now booming. That's the place to go. Tennessee is still one of the biggest music hubs in the world, and country music is the number one selling music in the world still. Okay, so you have to kind of study the genres and decide what do you want to do, and then you find where that is, and you kind of position yourself to to get there. But you have to be relentless. You have to. I mean, you got to be a nice person. Nobody wants a jerk around them. Nobody's gonna pay you to be a jerk. That's just the bottom line. But you got to be, you got to be a people person. But you have to do your homework. I remember before the pandemic, I got a call to go to New York to play at Jazz at Lincoln Center and do some concerts in Vermont with a Cuban musician by the name of Elio Villafranca. And he emailed me all the music, all the charts, and he sent me some MP3s. And I was sitting in my office with all this music spread out, and I'm had on my headphones and I'm on my pad practicing. And one of my students knocked on the door, and it was like, I came to ask you a question. So I answered the question, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm rehearsing, I'm practicing, I'm learning music for a gig." And it's like, "Oh wow, can you talk me through the process?" So I explained to them. The gentleman sent me the music 3 weeks in advance. I was flying into New York on a Wednesday, rehearsing on a Thursday, performing on a Friday, Saturday, and flying back on a Sunday. I had one 4-hour rehearsal to present 20 songs, and it wasn't a matter of asking questions when I got there. I had to show up and know this music. And that's what the real professional world is about. They don't pay you to come and learn music. They pay you to come and create music based on what they've sent you. So, like my original answer was, you got to be serious. You got to be dedicated. You have to do your homework. People expect when they hire you, you are bringing your A game all the time. And that comes from the way you develop yourself as a musician. You know, when I was in college, I really didn't have any other objective besides playing music. I did one thing in college socially, which was pledging a fraternity. And that was very beneficial for me, but my sole purpose in college was to be a great musician, to leave college doing that, knowing that when my commitment to myself was when I graduated I was going to be on tour. I didn't know how I was going to do it, I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I was starting to be a teacher, but I was thinking like a performer. And I went into music education because I didn't have the performance proficiency when I got to Rutgers. So I had to make a decision, performance or education. And I said education because if I couldn't play, at least I could teach. But halfway through my education process, I became very good and people started calling me for work and because of my commitment. So I'm going on and on, but I'm really trying to say you have to be serious. You have to and you have to be serious to the point where people see you, they're like, oh no, this guy's serious. This is the guy we want. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much. That was like food for thought. I get what you're trying to say. I had my old teacher used to kind of say the same thing to me back when I was younger and I was doing music, whether it was saxophone or piano. It's kind of the same thing, where if you don't take what I'm teaching you and utilize it, it's all for nothing. You have to be serious. It's the only way you learn. And it's yet another saying too, is like you only make your hands do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
So you gotta learn it. This is what
I had a professor that would, my first year of college, he drove me crazy. He would always walk up to me. His name was Professor William Butler Fielder, and he was a trumpet instructor, but he was the head of the jazz program. He would say, "Young man, what is the drums?" And I said, "A percussion instrument." "Oh, no, 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 that's not what it is. That's not what it is." And then he would turn around to somebody and say, "Young man, what is the trumpet?" And he said, "Brass instrument." "Oh, no, that's not what it is." And after about a year, I said to him, "Man, I've looked this up. I've come to you with multiple answers, and the answer that I'm giving you is not the real answer." He said, "It's a mirror of your mind. If you get your mind right in your path, nobody can stop you from playing the drums." And he's right. Like you said, your hands will only do what your mind tells you to do. So you have to spend the time training your mind. Everything we do on a physical instrument, I'm playing the drums, is mechanics. If I don't practice for a week and I get back on the drums, within 5-10 minutes, it's going to start flowing back. But mentally, if I'm not there, it's going to be a longer time to get back into the game. So you're right.
Thank you so much. And now I'm going to give you another question that is going to come from Keana Jacobs.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chef Parson.
Good afternoon.
How would you describe the music you create?
Well, with 21st Century Band, my compositions,
Yes.
I describe them as sound stories, because every song that I write reflects a story from my life. I was listening to the music as you guys was discussing that first presentation at International Jazz Day. That was our arrangement of Sly Mongoose. And I've played that song for a number of people and they didn't realize it was Sly Mongoose. And Sly Mongoose was one of the folk songs I grew up playing, and I've heard it done in so many different ways. And I decided, well, in this day and age, a lot of people are grooving to songs and, funk is in and everything. Can we put a nice little funk groove in it and create some unique harmonies and drop Sly Mongoose on top of it? And just because Sly Mongoose is Sly, so we created a Sly vibe for the song. And it takes a lot of people a while to realize this Sly Mongoose, but it's like, man, this song is nice, it's chilling. You could sit back, you could have some wine, it's just a nice, easy go. I say, yeah, it's Sly Mongoose. So a lot of the songs that I write actually comes from, stories that I've heard or experiences in my life. But I call my music sound rather, SUND, sound stories. That's what I call my music, because by the end of the music is taking you on a journey, on a path that you can reflect, and you can have your own reflections of it.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, what are you currently working on at UVI and in the community?
what am I covering? Well, at UVI, I'm just trying to finish the semester, like you guys. Through all of this is, we're getting down to the end, and there's a lot of stuff happening. But no, at UVI, we're doing some great things. We're working on building our music studio. We hired a vibrant young man, Mr. Tabari Lake, as our music engineer instructor, and he's doing a great job doing that. So we're working on that. We're developing our dance program. As you know, we introduced a BFA degree and started a dance program in last fall in August at the beginning of the semester. So we have a number of projects that we're working on there, and hopefully, with the university going back in the fall in person, we'll be able to present some of the music and stuff that the students have been working on because they've been doing a good job also. We have a number of students that's been writing and developing projects on that level. Um, Outside of UVI and in collaboration with some of the things I'm doing at UVI, as I mentioned earlier, 21st Century Band is getting ready to present our International Jazz Day project on May 3rd. So we're very, very excited about that. We have 3 songs that we've recorded. These Blues that I wrote, a song by the name of Sprangaliki that Victor wrote is a Quilby infused song, and then a ska song, the ska rhythm of Jamaica, a song that Ron Blake wrote entitled Pink Sunset. So we've recorded that, remotely. Everybody did their part and sending in, and I'm working right now with my good friend, video editor, Mr. Natafa Romain, and he's putting it all together for us. And we will have, we're very excited about that. So when it airs, it's going to be a nice project. So we're happy about that. I also did a project for the Department of Tourism, a new song for them. So that's going to be released very soon also. And I'm working on a classical project with my band. My piano player, Carlton Holmes, and I have been arranging a number of classical songs. Our last CD, we did a piece by Bach entitled Air on a G String, and we did a reggae arrangement on that. And that was received very well. So we decided to create some new songs in that format. So hopefully in the fall we can release or record rather this new project of all classical music in a Caribbean format. So
Thank you for
you're
your
welcome.
answers.
You're welcome.
This is the final question for you, Chairperson Parson. Why should students come to the University of the Virgin Islands for music recruitment style? How, why? What is the reason? If you are looking to expand your knowledge and to grow in the art of music, why should they come to this university?
Well, the University of Virgin Islands is a very diverse university, and one of the things that we've done there since I've taken over is we really expand the music department. It was a traditional music education department, and then we added the BFA program in music performance. So within that aspect of it, we are now working with kind of dual presentation. The students are still getting traditional education, but we're also presenting jazz influence or embellished classes also within that format. Like myself, being a world musician, I'm bringing a number of different presentations to the table. We have partnered with the Forum, the classical organization on the Virgin Islands. So whenever they have concerts in the territory, specifically on St. Thomas, their artists come to UVI and do workshops for us for free. Within my foundation, United Jazz Foundation, we have an artist in residence program where we bring in 5 artists every year for 8 weeks between St. Croix, St. John, and St. Thomas to do mentoring in the public schools. Those artists spend time at UVI also. And we have a number of outreach concerts that we do besides. The choir has adopted a number of churches that they perform in. The jazz ensemble was playing in a number of gigs. So we have a lot of outreach that we do. So I think we offer the students at UVI a wide array and variety of opportunities to develop themselves outside of the classroom. One of the things I learned as a student when I was in college, the classroom is great, but when you step outside, how do you represent yourself? And that's the thing that I encourage my students to do. We do service learning. All of our students have to do 80 hours of service learning prior to their senior year. And most of it is outreach in the community. So we encourage our students to get involved in the community. A lot of them, like the steel pan players, they work with Rising Stars to mentor the young folks there. A lot of the piano players play in our local churches. Like I mentioned, the choir has adopted a couple churches that they play in throughout the years. The concert band played for a number of events. One of the things we did with our BFA program, with our BFA degree, was we created a chamber ensemble course, which is a chamber ensemble is a group of musicians, 4 to 6 musicians. Instead of being in a big ensemble, it's a smaller group. So we're starting that in the fall. So these chamber ensembles can now go out and play for a lot of different private events. So these are the things that we're offering our students at the University of Virgin Islands, and that's why we encourage them to come here to participate in these opportunities.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Parson. It was such an honor to hear from somebody who's made a career of this and has done so many things and has gotten to see the world from this. So now I'd like to ask you, is there anything you want to share with our viewers and us here at the radio production class?
Well, I would just like to thank everyone here for having me, or even considering me to be a guest. It's an honor, and I would like to, for you, each one of you all, to, encourage you to, pursue your dreams. Everything, trust me, everything is possible. I've seen a lot in my short period of time, and everything, trust me, everything is possible. And for our viewers, continue to support. And hopefully my advice is something that can help you. If you like to reach out to me, you can always reach me through UVI, dion.parson@uvi.edu. I'll be happy to, discuss any of the things that I mentioned or talk to you guys about any other stuff. I'm pretty much an open book, so feel free to contact me if you need to.
Thank you so much again here for our International Jazz Day show here at WUVI Radio Production. We had such an honor to have you here on the show with us, to have this little interview and to give a little insight into what's going on in the university, what we have to offer here in the music department, essentially. So again, thank you so much, especially now that it's coming down to the end of our semester, one of our last shows. We really appreciate you being here and giving us part of your day and time to come on to the show.
You're totally welcome. I like your background. I have the same thing. I use it when I have meetings in the States and everybody's snowed in, and I get on, I'm like, hey, how y'all doing? It's like, oh man, get rid of that background. It brings a lot of sunshine to folks, so I use it for that. So thank you all for having me. Good luck with everything, and all the best.
Same to you. So folks, again, this is WUVI Radio Production celebrating International Jazz Day here at the university through Zoom. We hope you guys learned a lot through our presentations, and I hope you guys had fun here listening to our little interview with Chairperson Dion Parson. Thank you so much.